Hello and welcome. As the world witnesses rising geopolitical uncertainty, the spotlight really is on how global commodities, in particular oil prices, are going to respond, react, and what this will mean for the world and for India. We have seen oil prices rise on rising uncertainty, Iranian unrest, Venezuela uncertainty, and we have, of course, seen the rising tensions between the US and Venezuela. Well, what does this mean for the world? What does this then mean for India? To decode all of that, I'm joined by Peter McGuire, CEO of Trading.com Australia. Peter, thank you for sharing your thoughts and for joining us for this interaction. For those wondering, look, the world is witnessing rising uncertainty. A lot of volatility, of course, is what analysts have told us should be expected. But then, what does this mean for the world? Because, of course, oil prices are seeing an impact already.
Well, exactly, and lovely to join you, Sakshi. Greetings from Sydney. You know, what we saw in the last couple of sessions, we were trending south, and everyone realised that. And there wasn't a lot of blowback if we put our minds back just over a week from the Venezuela situation as far as price. Yes, that it certainly went up $1 or so, but then it didn't go gangbusters, up $4 and $5. And I think that everyone sat on that and they just digested the information. The other side, of course, is that midweek tension started to bubble, and they've certainly been bubbling a lot hotter in the last probably 24 hours, and that's the situation with Iran. And crude prices, I noticed Brent was up 2.18%, and that was on Friday. And WTI, West Texas Intermediate, actually was up 2.35%. So there's obviously a geopolitical tension that's built into price.
That's right. And also, then what does this mean for India, to your mind, Peter? India, of course, is a net importer of oil. India has diverse means today and so far has been resilient to the geopolitical shocks really coming India's way. But your thoughts really on how this uncertainty then and what it could mean for India going forward?
Well, I want to see how this unpacks over the next really probably 45 days. I put my mind out to the 1st of March, and there's no reasoning for that, but just because they're big themes that need to unpack, and it takes time for them to settle. And from a geopolitical standpoint, Sakshi, let's see what happens in the next fortnight to 3 weeks with Iran. Also, keep your eye on Cuba with US battleships off their coast. The situation naturally with China and Taiwan, and that's starting to gain a little bit of momentum. And the big picture, of course, how does the US roll with Venezuelan crude and so on? So there probably it's a long-winded answer, but I would suggest that maybe it's going to add a couple of dollars to the upside in geopolitical risk, and that can quickly be stripped out of it as well. I'm still bearish as far as energy prices this year, and I think they'll be softer than stronger, but there will be valleys and peaks over the trading year.
Right. Also, Peter, Trump has, of course, said a whole lot. He has, of course, we have seen the rising protests in Iran. We have seen what he said. He is, in a sense, we've seen Iran also urge the UN to respond to Trump's threats, saying, because Trump has said that, look, Iran is going to be in big trouble. Then we have seen Iran urging the UN to respond to these threats from Donald Trump. We have seen the fact that, oil tankers are being seized, and, we've seen the crackdown on Venezuelan oil altogether. And we've also seen, Trump saying that, look, a decision on which oil firms will go into Venezuela will come in soon. So really, he is saying a lot, and that will have a global impact. Your thoughts on that?
Well, it certainly will have an impact. I mean, one needs to consider a couple of things. First off, production costs and the initial investments that could be in the hundreds of billions, with a B, billions of US dollars, to get these fields up to speed and for them to be production powerhouses. And that's not just flicking a switch and saying, we go in here and turn the key and it all happens. We're looking at a timeline perspective. It could be out as far as 2030. So just put that in the back of our mind from a time perspective, 4 to 5 years, and big capital expenditure. The second part is we all understand the reserves, 303 billion barrels, and it is an enormous amount of oil. It's the largest fields in the world, and everyone's mindful of that. So that's where you're looking at the likes of ConocoPhillips, Chevron, and the other associated players. It could be a services industry that looks at this. use the existing technology and infrastructure and put services over the top of it. And then that speeds things along quicker. So it all comes down to business cases, strategy, investment opportunity, and return on investment. Where do these funds go back to? Do they go back to the Venezuelan people? Do they go back to the oil producers? Sakshi, these are still unknown components of this whole equation that need to be fleshed out and appreciated.
Right. Unknown, really, and a lot of uncertainties even within the equations that we are now seeing come to light, like you said. But Peter, like you said, Donald Trump now has the remote control to the world's largest oil reserves. Right.
Yes.
Now he is, in a sense, in the hot seat to decide really what happens with these oil reserves. Your thoughts really on how this could then pan out for the world?
Well, I think first off, it's unquestionable that he has control of the Venezuelan fields, or the US does. So there's the first part of the journey, and the Energy Secretary of Energy, Chris Wright, is working fervently to make this their reality. How it impacts as far as production and the impact to world demand, we are very conscious in the sense where Venezuela hasn't been a big elephant in the room. It's got the largest fields and the largest reserves, Sakshi, but it hasn't been producing 10 and 15 million barrels a day. So if any oil that is that the world needs, and Venezuela can't come to the party and supply that, there are many other components of this in the likes of OPEC Plus that can quite happily turn the handle over a bit harder, and they can get that oil. I'm referring to the likes of Russia. I know there are sanctions, and the likes of Saudi, UAE, and so on. So that's the mechanism that we need to be conscious of, and how that unpacks. I'm concerned with the Iranian situation because they are a large producer, how that could impact not only the production, but of course the shipping through the Strait of Hormuz. If that was to be, derailed, then that could really impact global crude, and that's what the market certainly doesn't want to hear.
Absolutely. So really a lot within the demand supply dynamics here, as you were trying to explain, whether it's the situation in Iran or the situation in Venezuela, really. But your thoughts really on where do we see near-term oil prices in the near term and in the medium term? If you had to are you going to be in wait and watch mode?
Well, I want to answer it. I'll answer it, but I want to add another component to that scenario, because this time last week, or 8 days ago, Venezuela didn't exist, in the sense of they hadn't taken President Maduro. There was no talk. There was rumblings, but nothing was concrete. And the world hadn't taken that into appreciation. Now we're a week later. We've got Venezuela. We've got the situation with Iran. So how this moves forward, we've got geopolitical risk built into price right this second, and the market has demonstrated that, with Brent sitting at 63 and a quarter and a third, WTI sitting just over 59. We were closer to $55 and $58 respectively for both of those crude mixes this time, a week and a half ago. Now you've put on significant upside. So that demonstrates the volatility aspect that the marketplace lives and breathes, this living organism it's dynamic, called crude oil. And what it doesn't want is surprises. It doesn't want geopolitical concerns and tensions, and it doesn't want uncertainty. And that's what we're in at the moment. There's a degree of uncertainty. So I just wanted to paint that picture. When it comes to price, I believe it's going to be cheaper than more expensive. But the caveat, of course, Sakshi, is geopolitical concerns and what that can demonstrate as far as price, and it could be up a couple of dollars from here. I don't know how Iran positions itself and what the absolute outcome is going to be. No one knows that. And that's why I wanted to give that timeline from today, being the 10th, up until the 28th of February. I know that I've got those window of time to be able to decipher what movement is. Pardon me.
Right, absolutely. So, really, a lot in wait and watch mode. A lot of those outcomes are waited. A lot, really, on how the situation, as it were, unfolds. Both in terms of how we see the Iranian unrest unfold, how we see the tensions with Venezuela go ahead, and the impact that that will have then on the demand-supply dynamic, the oil market, prices that will impact the world and India in particular. Thank you for sharing your initial thoughts, Peter. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Sakshi.